Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. I'm your host Leo, and today we are talking Supergirl, the second theatrical release for the new DCU, or EU, or whatever they're calling it. Anywho, this movie is loosely based off of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. I do own this comic book, and I'll be talking a little bit about it, but I've only read a little bit of it so far. I think I've read enough to kind of give a decent idea of where things kind of compare and contrast. But do take it with a massive grain of salt, as I have yet to finish it. Anywho, with that though, let us go ahead and get started. I do want to start off with kind of giving my general opinions on this film, how I felt going into it, and how I felt going out of it. So, overall, I like it. It's not bad. There are some things that I feel could be improved, and we will talk about those in more detail as we go on. But overall, it's not a bad film. I do recommend seeing it while you can. Does it follow up exactly how I would have liked it to after Superman? Not exactly. But at the same time, it's its own thing, and it sets up things for the character in the future. And for that, I do appreciate it. Before going into it, I was very optimistic, very excited. When I saw her little cameo at the end of Superman, I was excited to see where they were going to go, and I was like, oh, so they're probably going to go in this direction, and I think that that's very interesting. So, as the year went on, excitement rose, but I also didn't know what to expect from it. Then, as more images and whatnot came out, I was still very excited. Once the first trailer came out, I was sold. And once I actually was able to start seeing things with like Lobo and whatnot, yeah, I was very much looking forward to seeing the film and where it went. Then the film came out. I saw it like a day or two after it released. Of course, leading up to it, there were a bunch of people dogging on the film, shitting on it, but it's not bad. Millie Alcock does a great performance as Kara, and that's that. She definitely is very able to portray someone who is definitely traumatized by their past and is looking for a means of escape. And in this, it's all about her trying to find a way to kind of practice what she preaches. But that's kind of getting a bit ahead of myself. Yeah. Overall, after I came out of the theater, was I overwhelmed? Underwhelmed? No, I would say I was whelmed. It was good. It was entertaining. It was a bit short, which is a bit surprising for me to say, because overall I kind of enjoy a bit of a shorter movie, because then I can watch it and move on with my day a little bit faster. But I did find myself kind of surprised to feel that I wanted more. I wanted the movie was just missing a couple of scenes that would have elevated it from good to great, or at the very least, pretty good. That would have elevated it from good to great. And while I'm not entirely sure exactly what I would have wanted, there are a few things that I feel could have helped elevate it just a bit more. But we will once again talk about those down the line. With that said, though, let's go ahead and tackle this film. What's it about? Well, it is Kara's 23rd birthday, and she is celebrating it with a pub crawl. She has gone to a planet that has a red sun so that she can properly feel something. Because that is an issue that she's been dealing with. Because of having to live under a yellow sun with Clark, she's found that she's no longer has to feel. She doesn't necessarily feel pain. She doesn't necessarily feel anything. And with that, her emotions are also kind of going because she feels numb after all that she's had to experience. So she goes to a planet with a red sun and drinks her sorrows away. And she's enjoying the ability to feel something, even if it's mostly just to bury her other emotions, that she's contemplating moving there just to be able to get drunk every single day. But, lo and behold, her plans are thwarted when a young girl comes in and is asking for assistance in hunting down Crumb of the Yellow Hills. Now, the movie actually does start with following her. And in a way, the movie is more about her. Because the comic that it's based off of is more about her. And Supergirl's just mostly a character that is there to accompany her. So when the film actually begins, it is following her and her family. Her family are kind of a family of blacksmiths. Or at least her dad is a blacksmith. And he makes some fantastic swords. Crumb shows up because he's expecting to pick up some swords. And so when he comes in, they treat him as hospitably as they can and try to get him out as soon as possible. All while Ruthie, the girl, is kind of frozen watching. She's kind of stunned by what is going on. And as she's standing there, her brother, who's been kind of ignoring the entire situation, doesn't know what's going on because he has headphones on, decides to jump out and spook her for some random reason. I mean, I get it. It's a little brother thing. But, obviously she's standing there and she's in, shock and fear. But he decides to jump out and scare her. Bit of an odd choice. But at this, Crumb, I guess, panics and immediately just chucks an axe into the kid's back. Whoops. And then proceeds to then slaughter her family, as they obviously are very mad at him murdering their son. She stands there, Ruth, continues standing there in complete shock as he finishes up and then just leaves. So then she sets out on her quest to get revenge by taking one of her father's swords and is going around presenting it as payment for tracking down Crumb. Overall, she just keeps going around asking people, and one alien guy decides to just take the sword and leave. At this, Kara tries to stop them, but is kind of brushed off. So she goes and continues following. Is like, hey, at least, do the thing and get the sword the proper way, the way she's asking you to do it. And the alien's like, no. So they get into a fight. Supergirl beats him, gets the sword back, fights him with the sword a bit, and then gives it back to the girl. And the girl's like, hey, cool, so you can help me? And she's like, nah, nope, I need to go. So they leave, and Kara, is just trying to sleep off the hangover that she's almost certainly going to have. And the girl comes back and asks again, hey, can you help me with this? And while she's saying no and leading her out, Crumb just kind of shows up and takes her ship and leaves. And this... Oh, and also ends up shooting Crypto with a poisoned dart. So they go to a lady to investigate this to see if Crypto is going to be okay. But it's a paralyzing agent that will slowly but surely paralyze him until his heart stops and whatnot. And because they're under the red sun, it's taking effect and will kill him. So they need to find the antidote. And the only antidote that exists is around Crumb's neck. Because the Raiders, they carry it with them because they use it as a form of an interrogation situation to get what they want. So Kara is invested and joins in on the thing, kind of. Though Kara does keep reiterating that she doesn't actually want to kill Crumb because it will cause issues for her. It'll haunt her. So it is constantly trying to talk her out of it. So they take a bus. Well, specifically, Kara tells her to stay with Crypto while she goes and deals with Crumb, but she ends up joining them anyway. Womp womp. So off they go on their little journey. While they are hanging out on the bus ends up getting taken over by tech pirates or pirates, and they're going through for valuables and stripping the space bus. So Kara decides to do something after her watch was taken, which is a very cool little watch because the lady The shaman lady tells her, you have 3 days. So she sets the watch, and it literally has like 3 days on it, which is very cool. It's a neat looking watch. But they set out, they take the watch, and they take the sword. And so Kara decides to take one of their like little teleport things, because they have these like teleport devices, and it goes into a very fun action sequence of a teleport fight. And Kara ends up getting stuck in the airlock, and she asks the drivers like, "Hey, where's the nearest yellow sun?" And they just point like, "Oh, it's on the other side of the planet." And she's like, "Cool." So she starts putting on a spacesuit to hop out into space to find the red sun or the yellow sun. And while she's in the middle of putting on the suit, before she can get the helmet on, she gets ejected by one of the pirates. As she's floating helplessly in space, slowly dying, the yellow sun does round the planet, and she gets her power back. So she begins to fight the pirates, dismantling their ship, taking the pirates hostage, and flying the space bus to the nearest rest stop. Here, they interrogate the pirates to try to figure out, hey, where would Crumb be? And they say, hey, he would probably be on this planet because that's where a bunch of like scum go. They're like, that doesn't make sense because this happened to this planet. And they're like, yeah, that's why it's become a perfect place for like lowlifes to just kind of hang out. To which Kara's like, yeah, fair enough. So they go. They end up in another bar and are just kind of hanging out, trying to find information. When they find out, oh, okay, so this is what they're doing, because in this area they are the raiders, the Crumbs guys. They are looking for women, specifically young women, as they are a male only race and need to steal women in order to propagate their race. They kind of end up using Ruth as a bargaining chip, as these people value her. Though Kara does, continue to protect her, it ends up in a bar fight as she wins the arm wrestling, because she decides to use her as like a bargaining chip. And it's like, hey, if you win, you get both of us. If I win, you give us information. The guy's like, fine, because tiny woman can't do anything. But then the guy that she was going to arm wrestle gets pushed out of the way, and a bigger guy comes in and he's like, I'll arm wrestle you. So she's like, okay. She breaks his arm, and then it ends up in a full-on bar fight. She kicks everyone's ass, and then Lobo appears. He's just kind of sitting in the back of the bar, and he goes up and asks the barkeep about information on a different guy that's part of Crumb's crew. And the guy's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, yes, you do. And the guy's like, no. But Lobo's like, fine, and then leaves. Because, this is after Ruth tries to get him to join on the quest, but he's like, no, I'm a bounty hunter. Fuck you. And she's like, but I'll give you a sword. And she's like, no. So Kara has to like interject and is able to brush him off, and then he just leaves. Then the bartender and his wife are like, hey, maybe we can give you some information. We know someone who might be able to help you out. You come to our apartment, and then we'll go get him. So they split off and whatnot, and Kara decides to tell Ruth about her past and explains that she is from Krypton. And she's like, oh, but didn't everyone in Krypton like die when the core exploded? And she said, no. Krypton died a slower death because the elders did not want to listen to her father or his brother, Jor-El, and so the planet was dying. Her uncle's plan was send her cousin into space to take over Earth, and thus Krypton has a way to survive that way. Her father's plan was to section off a portion of the city and launch it into space. This plan ended up working a bit better, as the overall fall of Krypton happened 8 years before she was born. That does bring up a bit of an interesting change between the comics in general and this movie. It is that they are keeping the age difference between Kara and Superman more linear. Because in one of her origins, I think it's one of her first origins, it is that she was sent first, but because something got in the way, she ended up arriving after him, and time dilation and whatnot means that he ended up growing up to be older than her. So it's like a weird reversal thing. But in this, he is just like about 8 years older than her, and she was sent second to specifically meet up with him and try and survive. But it is given the full explanation that while the city was launched in space, she had an okay life, but then there was a sickness that took hold. It turns out that when the planet exploded, a rare mineral, kryptonite, started to seep into the soil as it was kind of lodged in and brought further up from the planet's core into the bottom of the little city bit, and thus has poisoned their soil. So everybody's dying. Her mother dies, and her last wish for Kara is to be good and do good. That she doesn't necessarily have to, she doesn't have to be happy all the time. She doesn't have to be friendly all the time. She just has to do what is right, essentially. That way she can still spread some form of positivity. And that is why her overall thing is like she'll help someone out, but she's not exactly happy about it. And she does try to find other solutions around it to kind of overall avoid potential conflict, but is still willing to do something if it is the right thing to do. But that's also part of the reason why she goes to drown her sorrows. Then her father decides that it is best to save her in whatever way he can. His brother was technically kind of right that it's best to just send their kids away. So he sends Kara in a bigger version of the pod that Kal-El was sent in to have her meet up with her cousin. And she does arrive and meets Kal-El, but he speaks English and doesn't really know Kryptonian, and she only knows Kryptonian, so it's a bit of a language barrier, but he tries to work through it. And that's kind of all we get from that portion of the story. We do kind of get a couple extra flashbacks back to this moment, or slightly after this moment, and then a little bit more after that moment. But overall, that is what I think could have helped expand the film a little bit more. Is if we got more of her time on Earth, to know a bit more of her disconnect. Because obviously she was there for a little while. She learned English. She at the very least attempted to be a superhero. That's what it's implied, is because it's heavily implied that she had attempted it but wasn't feeling it because everything else weighed down on her. So she decided to go on her pub crawl. How long she's been on the pub crawl, what initially set off the pub crawl, we don't know. But she did. The only extra scene that we see of her potentially donning the suit and being Supergirl on Earth is she is given the suit by Clark, and he says, I know it's a bit garish and colorful, but it's to let people know that we're good and that we do good. And that's it. That's all we get of that. And then the other scene that we get is her in an apartment, still speaking Kryptonian, with Crypto as like a bit of a puppy. And that's it. We don't get much more than that. And personally, I do feel that if we had gotten some more of her time on Earth, it might have helped elevate the film just a bit more. Sure, it does take a lot away from the random space adventure, but it would give a bit more insight into her motivations and whatnot, because obviously it wasn't just the death of Krypton and the extended death that she had to witness that was the sole reason for her going out on a pub crawl. There was something more there. In other media, like My Adventures with Superman, part of that is that she doesn't fully gel with the superheroing and ends up causing some damage here and there, and thus the citizens kind of turn against her, and that's what helps bring that disconnect in some cases. We'll see. Anywho, with that, then Kara gets kind of suspicious about what's taking so long for the guy getting his friend to help them. Goes down, and they're like, "Oh, go ahead and sit here, and we'll get you a drink and whatnot." While we wait for the friend to show up, and she's like, "Okay," drinks, and then realizes, "Ah, shit, she's been poisoned." And they're like, "Why haven't you gone out?" And she's like, "Where's the milk?" And he's like, "What? The milk, so that she can throw up, or it coats the stomach to help ease the poison and slow it down at the very least." And what it is that Crumb and his crew took their daughter, and so he struck a deal with Crumb that he would give back their daughter if they gave him two different girls, 2 for 1. He bursts in to get them. She goes to get Ruth, beats everyone up. Lobo shows up because his quarry is there. It's a big action sequence. The girl that the family was trying to trade for is part of one of the drop ships, because a bunch of the ships come down and a bunch of the brides escape, and that's part of the action sequence. She ends up going back to her family. Well, actually ends up being spotted and running and hiding. Crumb goes after her. Then Ruth goes after him, even though Kara once again said, like, "Hey, just stay here." But she went after him, and Supergirl stops her from killing him as he's about to get Ruth, as he's about to get the girl. And the girl and the family end up getting killed by him. And this is where Ruth and Supergirl have a bit of a argument. Her saying, like, "Hey, if you'd just let me kill him, they'd still be alive," and whatnot. And so Supergirl goes off to cool down for a minute in space, have a bit of a scream, which, boy howdy, do I know how good that feels sometimes. Then goes back down and immediately pushes one of the guys for information on where he is, because obviously he knows it's the guy that the bartender went and got, or went and used the information to go. And he's like, "Fine, but you have to put the bag on." So she puts the bag on, even though she can see through it, and they take her to the planet. There, she gets out, and they're like, "This is as far as we can go." His ship's like over on the horizon. So she gets out and starts walking, and then Ruth comes out. Well, she gets out and starts walking, and then as she's walking, the yellow sun sets, and a green sun rises, causing her to pass out. Ruth then shows up and drags her to a cave to try to get her out of direct sunlight, and it's explained that, oh yeah, he knew something about my planet, I guess, and me, so he has set up on this planet so that when I came, the sun itself could potentially kill me. Oh well. And Ruth was like, "Yeah, well, yeah, he left your ship on that planet, and on it was this suit. Does this help?" And she's like, "Nah, it's just a suit." And that's shortly after that's how we got the flashback of her getting the suit from Clark. Anywho, Ruth then goes out to try and deal with the situation on herself. We'll get Kara some water. And she ends up getting taken by Crumb's gang and imprisoned. And Lobo's also there for some reason. How he got imprisoned, why he got imprisoned, who knows? He's just there. He explains that the barbs in the prison are poison tipped and would cause a painful death. So she decides to break out. She lures one of the guards in to the cage by saying that she's ready to talk to Crumb and whatnot. And she attacks him, kills him, gets out, and then lets Lobo out, who then sets off to do his own thing. And she also starts to crawl through the vents. She finds her sword, continues on her way, and finds Crumb on top of the ship and goes to attack him. Meanwhile, Kara is still hanging out in the cave, thinking on when she got her suit and whatnot, and then the green sun sets and the yellow sun rises. She dons the suit and heads off to assist. As Kara arrives, Ruth is being hassled by Crumb, and they fight. Big action sequence, quite fun. Goes in multiple ways. The ship ends up crashing. Lobo comes in, also gets his quarry, takes the head, starts to leave after providing some minor additional assistance, and then he leaves. And she, after the ship crashes, is told, hey, you know, the other people are still on the ship, so Kara goes after the other imprisoned brides. And then Ruth then works her way down the hill, being pursued by Crumb. He ends up getting kind of crushed, but is fine. Continues chasing after. Ruth ends up getting encircled by Crumb's guys and Crumb, and is about to start fighting him when Kara is able to get the remaining brides out and flies in and starts attacking all of them and fleeing Crumb away. And once everything's said and done, Ruth has Crumb by sword, and Kara goes up to her and says, don't. It'll fuck you up. Like, sure, you'll have your revenge, but it won't make the feeling go away. And then you'll just be haunted by having killed someone. And she eventually accepts this, hands the sword over to Kara, and starts to walk away. Then Crumb says, well, I'll just make her life a living hell, but then Kara kills him, taking the burden upon herself, because, well, it's at least vaguely satisfying to kill this asshole. And thus, that is that. They get the antidote. They're able to get it back to Crypto. Crypto's fine. Ruth is going to go live with her aunt, but Kara's like, hey, you know, my birthday's still birthdaying, so if you want, you can hang out with me for a couple days. So they go off and do something, because at that point, she just kind of disappears. So then it cuts to a scene where Kara is back on Earth, having made her decision to try and be a hero, to try and do things. And she meets up with Clark and says that, you know, she's done with her crawl and she's ready to try. And Clark says, well, I'm ready to, I'm here to help and whatnot. And they have a nice little moment, which again, I think would have been elevated a bit if we had seen just a little bit more of her time on Earth. But that's just me. Anywho, with that said, though, that is the film. There's no post-credit scene or anything like that. There's some good music at the end. There some other things besides the story that are a little bit rough. The CGI could have used a little bit more time. To be fair, they had a bit of a tight turnaround for this film, and they're probably going to have a bit of a tight turnaround for the next film as well, as they're currently filming the next Superman movie as we speak. And I think that they could have just given the CGI and some of the stuff a little bit more time, because there's a few moments in some of the sequences that just don't look right. For example, her flying out of the ship after releasing the brides looks a bit odd. Her going in for a certain punch, like she slides in and goes for a punch, but it feels very awkward. It could have been just tweaked a little bit more to make the impact actually feel like it happened. Because it's one of those things where, like, she goes in for the punch and then, like, it takes a second or two for the dude to go flying. And it just doesn't feel as smooth as it could be. But overall, the action is fairly fun. The story is quite good. It just could have used a little bit more time to get the CGI and whatnot put together a bit better, and maybe expand the story just a little bit more to help the emotional impact hit a little bit harder. But overall, I do enjoy this film. I do highly recommend it, and I am still very excited to see what is going to happen in the new DCU. I believe the next film, I don't know if it's part of the actual universe, but the next film is supposed to be Clayface. The next full film that I know for sure is part of the universe is, I believe, going to be Man of Tomorrow, which is the next Superman film. Though, I feel like they should probably do something else soon. But we'll see. Anyway, there's also the Lanterns TV series that is coming out soon. I will be giving that a watch as well. And I do still need to watch Creature Commandos as well as Peacemaker. I'm very excited to watch those things. Now, as for what's coming up next on our thing, we've got Spider-Man. Spider-Man's coming up next. That's going to be a very tight turnaround, so don't be surprised if it's extremely roughly edited, because I pretty much have to record it, edit it, and release it all in the same day. And that's going to be, like I said, a very tight turnaround. But besides that, we do have some more things to look forward to. I do finally have the Alphabet Trilogy video fully recorded. I just need to edit it now. And then we have a lot of stuff coming down the line. As we get closer to the catch-up date, I will probably start releasing more episodes, kind of similar to how I did with the extra episode that I ended up doing not too long ago. So what we're going to do is I'll start slowly ramping up my episode release of new episodes, leading up to when we are finally fully caught up on episodes. Anyway, with that said, please look forward to the Spider-Man episode. And then after that, I believe I have Return to Silent Hill. And then we'll start getting other things like Alphabet Squadron and whatnot out as well. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. And I will talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.